I wanted to do an extra live for a couple of reasons that I will explain as such. Number one, I found myself this morning scrolling on the feeds, folks. You ever scroll on the feeds? You ever look at your brain and you go, "Hey, buddy, time for you to take a back seat. We're going to scroll the feeds. We're going to see what videos I will be presented today and that I will enjoy in the moment and then forget about completely." You go, "You know what I would like to see? All the horrors of the internet presented to me all at once." And that's what I was doing this morning. I decided, you know what? Instead of doing that, instead of uh, cascading my brain with the impending doom of a world and country on its last legs, I decided, you know what? I'd rather just do a podcast. I'm going to rearrange the camera for just a second. Sorry, this is a bit impromptu, but and we messed up the chords even more. All right, hey, you know what? This is a learning process, folks. But welcome to the Danswers podcast. I'm your host, Dan Donohue. We are going to answer some of your questions live, but first, I have some very important announcements. Very important, imperative to the survival of yourself and your loved ones. I am on tour. I am selling tickets to shows. Some people who follow me don't even know this, but I do stand-up comedy. I do live stand-up comedy. That's how I've been roaming this earth for the last 7 or 8 years. And I've started to headline, and it's very fun, and part of headlining is you need to sell tickets. So if you enjoy my videos, if you enjoy my musings, if you like my perspective or worldview, or on the flip side, if you hate it, if you want me to suffer, if you would like my friends to meet a bitter demise, I suggest that you buy tickets, okay? I suggest that you get tickets because either you can come to the show and enjoy yourself and have a fun time, or you can come up to me after the show and, you know, hopefully gently kick my shin and tell me I don't like it. But I will be performing in Kansas City. I will be performing in Springfield, Missouri, Minnesota, which we have to sell a lot of tickets to Minnesota. If you know anyone who's in Minnesota right now, even an estranged relative, a family member, maybe the aunt that when you were a kid you thought was just mean, but now you realize, no, she had a big drinking problem, and also the pills didn't help. If you have an aunt like that living in Minnesota, please tell her to come to the show, okay? I'm doing Connecticut. I am doing Rhode Island. I am going to be in Seattle, and I just announced Cleveland. So if you're in any of those places, please, 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 please come out and see me. Anyway, I wanted to come on here and talk a little bit about something that's very deeply, deeply been on my mind. It's the idea of wanting to put out a perceived fire. In our personal lives, this can range from very important things to incredibly unimportant things. I think a lot of the times this is me personally, because I recently had a personal situation where, let's just say, a friend group was having a rough time. You ever have a friend group? And here's how a friend group usually works. You all take individual turns having mental breakdowns, and the rest of the group pools their efforts into assisting you out of that. But every now and again, unfortunately, one of the friends has a mental breakdown at the same time another friend has a mental breakdown. This can be very troubling for the friend group. This can be bad news for the survival of the friend group. Why? Why, you might ask? Well, first of all, resources are pooled thin between those two friends. Things get strained. The mental health of the other friends in the group gets challenged. And also, those two friends, sometimes they go to war. Sometimes it's like two cats in a little basket. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's like a couple of cats fighting in a little basket. And, so the friend group, we had some rough times, and, I was no small part in that. I was no small part in the tough times my friend group was having. That's okay. We all make mistakes in the moment. The and it felt really bad because sometimes we do something, we make a mistake in our personal life, and our impulse is to think, "This is the end of the world. This is a catastrophe. My life will never improve from here on. My life will never, my life will never be the same." And the thing is, usually that's not the case. Usually, all you need to do is understand the power of time. You know how strong time is? You know how powerful time is? I'll tell you, it's killed literally everyone, okay? I just want you to think of the magnitude of the power of time. It has killed or will kill everyone. It's pretty powerful, all right? It's pretty powerful. There are guys I used to, work construction with, and I was really scared of them, and they only killed 2 or 3 people. Time has killed so it's very strong, okay? So next time you go, "This is an unsolvable problem," just wait for time to do a little bit of work on it, alright? Time has your back. Time is very powerful. Rebecca in the live chat said it yes, in Ireland, we call that a session. I assume you're talking to when the friend group goes haywire. I think that's a great word for it, a session. We're having a session right now. And so for the first time in my life, which I'm very proud of, we're taking steps, folks. Started seeing a therapist. That's not going well for him. Tell you that much. Boys, did he get the raw end of that deal. Boy, did my therapist get the raw end of the deal of me trying to improve my mental health. Do people never think of the therapist? They never do. They always think about you. People are always like, "You should see a therapist." And then I started seeing a therapist and I thought, "Man, you know what? My friends really didn't consider this poor man just trying to make a living, wearing weird shoes and loose sweaters." But here we are, you know? Here we are. But it it makes me feel better, and it also helps me talk through a lot of stuff that, maybe we don't quite get to on the podcast. And one of the things that I realized is time is just such a strong tool if you use it to your advantage. I don't wanna get too in the weeds philosophically here, but let me speak on this for just a moment. You can either see time, which most of us do, as an enemy. Why? Because it gives us wrinkles, right? Because it makes us detest current popular music. My grandma sorry, my grandma was, dating, quite a few years ago, and my uncle Mark was at the house, and she took home an older man, and my grandma was older at this point too, so an older man was pretty old, and, the older man met Mark, and then he left, and my grandma said to Mark, "What do you think about my new boyfriend?" And Mark said, "Time ravages." Just to give you just to give you a peek into the Donohue household. So, we see time as this kind of negative thing, but I do really think when you use it to your advantage, and you know how you use time to your advantage? You wait. Patience. Patience is the utilizing of time as a tool in your personal life. If you don't have patience, what that means is you are not utilizing time. You are fighting upstream in the current of time. You know what I say? Lay back. Lay back. When things got a little funky, in the friend group, my initial reaction was, I gotta put out this fire. I gotta put out this fire right now. I gotta fix everything. How do I fix everything? And then I realized, you know what? I'm not gonna do that. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna wait. I'm just gonna let the pieces fall where they may, and I'm gonna wait because maybe I'm not that powerful. Maybe I don't have the kind of impact I think I have. Maybe the world's a really big moving place and I'm a tiny, tiny speck in it, and I should act accordingly and not try to control everything because I can't. It's like if you had an ant in your apartment and your aunt was like, "Man, you know what? I think I'm gonna." It's literally like if the ant was like, "You know what? I think I'm gonna make this guy do his taxes." Doesn't work. Wouldn't work. You have a very small impact on the world around you, but it's very small. And when you just kind of step back and you tend your own garden, life just gets so much better, not just for you, for the people around you. Because, man, if you're trying to fix everybody, it's a long road to walk down, dude. Oh, I mean, because when you're a grown up, your friends got grown up problems, right? Your friends start, getting gambling addictions. Your friends start getting alcohol addictions. Your friends start getting gout. You can't control gout, brother. You can have your friend come up to you and say, "Hey, I'd like to speak with you about that gout." And that's when you give them empathy and you sit down and you listen. But you're not going to be able to pin your friend down and say, "Hey, listen to me. You have to deal with this gout." That's like movie stuff, right? I think people need to come to you if they want to be changed by you. And if they don't come to you, that's a sign to step away. That's a sign to step away. Not away, but back. It's a sign to step back. And it's hard for us to step back because you got an itch and you want to scratch it. That's one of the things. One of the first things you learn when you meditate, which I'm not perfect at, but I've been doing it for a long enough time where I think I have a decent grasp on the ins and outs of it. One of the first things you learn how to do is sit perfectly still and observe sensation rather than react to it. What an idea. What a crazy idea that is. But that is the sort of thing that separates people from the greater animal kingdom, at least to a small degree, right? I don't want PETA jumping down my throat, but what I have observed in humans that I haven't yet observed in, say, a squirrel or a vole is we have this ability of self-control, self-determination, and free will, but literally exercising that free will. I'm not using exercise as a word that means to enact. I mean exercise is a word that means to actively strengthen. So when you're meditating, you sit down and you'll get an itch on your nose. And when you get that itch on your nose, you don't scratch it right away. You observe it, and you know what you realize when you observe that itch on your nose? 9 out of 10 times, and I am not exaggerating, that's been my experience, the itch goes away. You didn't have to scratch it. The itch just goes away. It might have not even been there in the first place. It might have just been your brain kinda spiraling, circling, getting out of hand, and I really do think that when it comes to our personal lives, it could be like that too. We can we can really feel like action is required, but that's because action is all we can control and we want to have control, right? Maybe just let time do its thing. Maybe Maybe sit on the bench for a second and let time do its thing. We got some great comments here. I want to start going to some of them. I think it's really hard for people to step out of their in the moment sort of anxieties and issues with their families and friends and can't get maybe the perspective they'll have in even a year where things can either be so healed or just not even be relevant anymore to their life. And they forget how much anxiety or stress they even had over it. This is a very wonderfully crafted idea and thought. And to go off of that, I really do like. Can you guys hear the birds in the background? That's actually really nice. I really do like going back in my life and thinking about all the times I thought my life was over. Thinking about all the catastrophes. Sometimes it's good to write them down. Like, if you think something is really, really bad, just write down, I think this is a catastrophe that I'll never bounce back from, and then watch yourself bounce back from it, right? And I don't wanna use spiritual bypassing. I mean, sometimes horrible things happen to people, and the level of trauma, uh, does feel insurmountable, and we don't live in a perfect world, and sometimes I think it's healthy to feel like a catastrophe has befallen you. We're not machines, right? We're not the Dalai Lama. We're not we're not sucking we're not sucking tongues out here. You know what I mean? If you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. I don't want to explain it. But anyway, I really do feel like when you look back at the catastrophes that befell you, a lot of the times they weren't even catastrophes. A lot of the times they didn't even happen. Oh, we got something else fun here. Jay said, when you get the little itches when it's still on your brain saying, "Hey, are you still there? Are you going to react?" And you've got the power to say nope and be quiet. It's very powerful. It is. It's called executive function, folks. And let me take the other side. Sometimes it makes sense to get into a bit of a tiff. Sometimes it makes sense to get into an argument, right? Sometimes if someone is being incredibly disrespectful to you in the moment, it makes sense to yell back at them. Sometimes it doesn't. I was walking around my neighborhood, and I talked about this a little bit before, but sometimes I'll walk around my neighborhood with like wet wipes because unhoused people living outside, they usually could use wet wipes, and they've been received in usually a positive way. Like, if I'm just walking by 10 and I see people, I'll just go, "Hey, you need a wet wipe," right? Every now and again, and this is just part of that, people will react poorly. And it's almost always due to it's like, let me explain this situation. So I'm walking by the park at my house. There's a guy sitting there. Uh he lives outside of the park. And I walk up to him and I start to say, "Hey, do you need a wet wipe?" And as I say that, I realize there is a crack pipe in his hand and he has just smoked crack. Now, no judgment. In fact, if I were in his shoes and I had I can't say I wouldn't be doing exactly what he was doing, right? So I say, "Hey, do you want some wet wipes?" Halfway through the sentence, I go, "Uh-oh, shouldn't have." And then he looks up and says, "Do I look like I need anything?" And then he calls me the F slur, right? And my reaction in the moment, which is usually what happens when something like that happens, is I laugh. Not good, by the way. You can really instigate someone by doing that. And I go, "I guess not." And I walked away, still laughing. And then he called me a fat ass, which I thought was honestly, let me go ahead and say this. Honestly, that made me feel a little bit better because I would go ahead and say, me thinking that I'm a fat ass doesn't come up a lot in my own self-talk, right? Not to say my self-talk is, uh, overwhelmingly positive, but fat ass isn't something that comes up a lot. So when he called me fat ass, I was like, "Okay, he's kinda just reaching for straws." That might be the crack talking. Sometimes someone is giving you constructive criticism about your life, and sometimes it's the crack talking. But I walked away and I felt this mix of emotions. Like I felt whenever something like that happens, even though every part of me understands, it's like, okay, this guy clearly felt insulted by me coming up to him. He clearly didn't want to be bothered. He was clearly under the influence of a narcotic. I shouldn't take this personally, right? My logical brain understands that, but I do feel like there's a subconscious part of our brain that goes, I can't believe he would say that. I can't believe he do it. And it's like, listen, if if you're but this is my end thought. If you're doing good, if you're trying to do something good and you need the reaction of everybody going, "You're amazing." You're not doing it from a good place. You're doing it from maybe a place where you want recognition and you want people to congratulate you. I actually don't think that's necessarily the worst thing in the world. Like, sometimes I think that when I think that sometimes people will get into whatever activism, quote unquote, because they want people to think they're cool. But if the end result is the world gets better from your actions, intent isn't the most important thing in the world in that case. I think intent does matter, but in that case, I don't think it's the most important thing. Um, but then as I walked, I was like, yeah, well, this is this is so much bigger than you. I realize it's like, well, yeah, some people like if you're dealing with this many people, especially people in this situation, it's like you can't hold them up to the standard of always being nice and whatever. It's like that's why you're doing it is because you know their lives are harder than yours. You know. But anyway, I was happy because like my reaction to that was not from a place of like reactivity, like thank God. And, I think that was big. I think sometimes it's good to kinda realize, oh, yeah, every time you're challenged, every time somebody, like, lashes out at you in the moment, 9 out of 10 times the best thing to do is kinda nothing. Unless your life is, being threatened or your safety is being threatened or, in those cases, obviously reacting is a good idea, but most of the times it's not that. That's why I'm always like, when people use firearms for home security, I don't know nothing, and I haven't really looked at the statistics. This is just surely me talking, right? This is just me talking with the internet and public at large. I go, I know people's level of reactivity when it comes to perceived threat. Are the chances is there a chance that there's gonna be a home invader and you act perfectly and dispatch that home invader who is threatening your life or and safety? Yeah, maybe. Is there a chance that you think that's the thing that's happening and then something else really bad happens that you weren't expecting? There's a pretty good chance. And the argument for that is always like, well, that's why it's important for firearms owners to be trained. And it's like, well, we don't require that, do we? And it's like, well, no. And it's like, okay, well, listen, I ain't no politician, but I could see that situation going hairy. But anywho's what I'm saying is we're not perfect. We're not perfect, and I think a lot of the times we think we're gonna act a lot more perfect than we actually act in those high pressure situations. Alright. When someone is really mean to you, how do you learn to not internalize it? I know it's more about them than me, but it's hard sometimes. I think, honestly, it's, like, fine and normal to internalize stuff sometimes. Is that crazy? Am I insane for saying maybe sometimes a in the moment unhealthy reaction is at least normal and understandable? You're a person, and a lot of the times when we quote unquote don't internalize things, when we quote unquote are the bigger person, a lot of the times we're actually just kind of shoving that feeling down, and that can have some pretty negative effects, can it? Sometimes, not always, sometimes it's better to just, you know, maybe have a word with your coworker. I was at oh my god, this was so sick. Not sick in a bad way, sick in a cool way. I was at my local coffee shop recently. I walk in there and I do my writing there, you know? I'm the asshole in the coffee shop who's just sitting there with his moleskin, writing down his ideas for his little TikTok videos. I'm such a phony stereotype. It's so funny. That was my loud water bottle. But I walk into my cool coffee shop where I swear to God I do this. I'm just waking up in the morning when I go there. It's like the place I go first thing in the morning. I try to put on a cool flannel where it looks like I'm not trying when really I totally am trying to look cool for the baristas. I want so badly to look cool in front of the baristas, and I'm so doing that thing that asshole writers do where they're writing, but they're not just because I do focus on my writing to a degree, but part of me is like, everyone in here sees that I'm writing. Everyone in this coffee shop sees that I'm writing. Aren't I so important? Certainly, everyone in this coffee shop isn't minding their own business and doing their own thing. They're looking at me and saying, "Oh my goodness, look at that man getting his work done. He didn't even bring his phone here. Look how important he is. He didn't even bring his phone." I certainly noticed that, and I'm not thinking about my own problems like a normal human being. But anyway, I walk into my coffee shop and I see the guy behind the counter is talking to his coworker. And before I get up there and he doesn't really notice me because he's facing his coworker, he says, "I want you to know it's not okay for you to talk to me like that, and I never want you to do it again." And I was like, whoa, whoa. You ever see a boundary get put up in real time? It's crazy. It's beautiful. I was really stricken by the beauty of that scene. And sure, it probably didn't play out beautifully. I've had trouble with coworkers before. You ever put your foot down and then you still have to have 7 or 8 hours in the same place where that foot just fell? It's not easy. And I walked up and I bought my coffee and I sat down. I thought, "Man, I've been at work and I've had problems with people, but I've never had the balls to do anything like that. I've never had the gumption to actually put my foot down in that way and, and, like, stand up for myself in that way," right? So when you see it happen, I hate to use this word flippantly, it's inspiring. I felt truly inspired by this person who had the bravery in the moment to put his foot down and go, "No, you're not gonna talk to me like that. You're not gonna talk to me like that. This is my boundary. I'm not." He at no point said, "You're an asshole." He at no point said, uh, "You're dumb." There was no insults there. It's a lot more powerful when there's not. We're all when we get into conflict, we're always trying to own the other person, right? We're always thinking, how do I own this person? How do I say the perfect thing that's going to insult you? How am I going to own you in this argument? But really, sometimes the best thing to do is to not even think about the other person, is just think about yourself. Obviously, the other person needs to be considered, but it's like, what do I want out of this situation? Then ask for that exactly. Ooh, that's a great way. That's a great way to like stand up for yourself without having to quote unquote own somebody. Honestly, sometimes it takes away from the other person's point when they're being insulting because you go, oh, well, you're not reflecting reality at me. You're just trying to hurt my feelings. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it works. Sometimes I mean, I realized the other day, I'm still very susceptible to insults about things that I kind of thought I was past. Like somebody made fun of my because I'm fine with people making fun of my ability to spell because I know I spell poorly. But somebody recently insulted my ability to spell and extrapolated that into I can't write, and they insinuated someone wrote something for me because they were like, well, you can't even write." That got me. It got me in this way. That was extra kinda tough because I thought I was past that, you know what I mean? I thought I was past feeling insulted because I've talked about it so much. I've dealt with it so much. I've dealt with it in public. I've made videos about it. I've talked about it on stage. And sometimes you think you're past something, and it's better to not even think of it as being past or whatever. It's like I think the sting goes away a little bit sooner, but it's still there. When someone hits you across the head with like one of your own insecurities, it can it can be. I think the best thing to do sometimes is to admit, like, ah, that stung. Oh, because I guess like, I mean, for me, being able to write was such a big step forward for me because I used to think all of my ability to communicate was going to be kind of impeded for my whole life, and I was always going to be misunderstood. I thought I was gonna be misunderstood my whole life, and everybody was gonna misunderstand me, but I actually did. It sounds like a sob story, doesn't it? It sounds like the kind of thing I'm getting on a soapbox and I'm going, "Can you believe my parents got divorced?" It's so funny how we treat divorce now because people act like you can't be sad over it because it happens to so many people, you know? So you'll be like, "Oh, yeah, my parents got divorced," and people will be like, "Oh, your parents got divorced? That happens to everybody." It's like, yeah, that doesn't make it good. That doesn't that doesn't make it like, "Oh, it happens to every." Oh, okay. Then I guess it's fine then. If like, if half the population got their tongues cut off and were complaining about your tongue getting cut off, and someone was like, "Everybody gets their tongues cut off." It's not like you would be like, "Oh, I guess that's true." It's still bad. It's just a bad thing that happens to most people. It's such a funny. Everybody's tongue gets cut off. Oh, you think you're special? All my friends I got my tongue cut off. And I just repress those emotions, and they come out in every relationship I'm in from then on. Ugh. It's very funny. It's very funny. But, but yeah, I mean, It's good to realize you're not completely over it, you know? It is. It is, because I think there's a level of and I'm not saying weakness, but there's a level of weakness into being like, "Well, I'm over it. I'm completely over it. There is no backtracking here," and it's like, "Well, give yourself a little space to backtrack, huh, buddy? You can backtrack just a little bit. Take a little slide back, you know? You don't have to be, you know, it's a continuum, right? It's a continuum. If anybody has any other questions, please throw them in the chat. Oh, this is a perspective I've heard quite a bit. Try the reverse. My parents told me they're getting married. I spent my childhood wishing they'd split up. Listen, I've heard that quite a bit. The grass is always greener on the other side. I see my friend's parents breaking up, and I say, why can't it be me? Why can't that be my U-Haul in the driveway? Why can't that be my dad's U-Haul? Yeah, yeah, my dad and my mom, they had a blow up fight, and my dad slept on the couch for a couple nights, and then he started living with Uncle Jerry. Lucky. Lucky. I do agree with you, though. I mean, there's a lot of marriages where it's like, can we just every marriage should last 5 years, and then you have to get remarried after 5 years. A lot of people are just in marriage because 'cause they're like, "Well, divorce is so difficult." You should get every marriage should end in 5 years with a divorce, and then you have to decide to get remarried again. How many how many how many marriages would be saved? Or bad marriages would be ended if we just did that every 5 years. You're not signing a contract, you're signing a lease. And I get it, "Till death do us part." Shut up. Shut up. I will never change. I promise from the bottom of my heart, I will never change in any way. I will remain exactly the same for the rest of my life. I pinky promise. That's how people act in marriage. It's so funny that we're just like, "Yeah, that's normal." Oh, yeah, you know that thing that, has never worked once except for, like, 2 weird people who we can't relate to in any way? That'll be the norm. That'll be totally the norm. I promise from the bottom of my heart, I will never be attracted to another person. Even that guy at work with the nice, tight, button-up shirt who comes to my desk and lingers for a little bit too long. I promise from the bottom of my heart to never want to kiss his chest. I promise in front of this priest, even though I haven't been to church for 17 years, I promise that when the girl who works at the coffee shop gives me bedroom eyes when she hands me my coffee and touches my hand, by accident, she says, I will never think about giving her my number or hanging out when she takes a smoke break and asking her what album she listens to. Because I'm married now. It's a tough life, folks. It's a tough life. Fidelity is very difficult. This says have a work marriage, art marriage, travel partner, family partner, so on and so forth. So not 5 years, 5 partners so you know your role and you aren't trying to be the workout buddy, travel companion, yada yada. Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. Although guys in that situation I can guarantee would try having sex with all 5. So that's where things get a little murky. That's where a wrench gets kind of thrown in the whole situation there, I think, you know? But hey, it's not the worst thing in the world. I don't know how many people here listening are married or not, but isn't it weird? Isn't marriage such a strange thing? Like people always talk about like the sanctity of marriage is being destroyed and it's like sanctity of marriage. What what? It's so crazy that people didn't want and still don't want gay people to get married cuz it's like brother, they're breathing life force into this dead monster of an industry. Have you ever seen gay people get involved in anything and it doesn't get better? Look at what gay people do to a neighborhood. All right? You think they can't do that for marriage? You're out of your gosh darn mind. I think we need to take a break on straight marriage for a little bit. I think we need to maybe I think, straight marriage, we've tried it for quite a while. We've had a we've had a pretty bad run. I was gonna say we've had a good run. I don't know about good run, you know? But yeah, just let them try it out. See what they do with it. Maybe take a back seat, learn a little bit from same-sex couples. See if marriage doesn't get a little bit more fun. See if marriage doesn't get a little bit more exciting. See if you don't look from across the street and go, "You know what? Maybe now I do wanna get married." This comment here says, "Polyamory for the win?" Question mark. Listen, we're tiptoeing. We're tiptoeing on murky water here because I wanna make myself crystal clear here. I don't wanna alienate any people. I don't want any people to feel alienated for that because I don't mean this in an alienating way. I think polyamory certainly works for certain people. I think a lot of people see polyamory as this miracle cure for a teetering relationship. A lot of people see polyamory as the shimmering light in the distance. Look at that. Look at that over there. That mirage in the desert. No conflict ever because I'm dating 5 people and not just 1? Oh, I must go over there and seek the light of polyamory. And then you get over there and you go, "Oh, look at this. Even even more conflict?" You go, "Look at this. Even more difficulty? I can't believe it. I thought wait, you're telling me that instead of failing at securing the emotional stability of one person, I now need to consider the emotional stability of 5 people? And that's not somehow easier? My word, who could have thought? Who could have had any idea that balancing the plates of 5 separate people's emotional reality when you can't even handle one is a little bit tougher? My goodness. And it's not a bad thing. And I think the people who do polyamory correctly are living wonderful lives right now. But I need you to ask yourself if you see polyamory as this magical fix where all your problems will be solved, where your arguments with your partner will not continue because you can both go off and have sex with another person. You can both go off and, whether or not you like it, emotionally mesh with another person. And to think that will cause no turmoil or will not even have the possibility of causing turmoil. You know what a lot of the successful polyamorous people I know. You know what they say? Because I live in Los Angeles and I've met them. They say It's even tougher. It's like, you know how baseball, they have the minor leagues and they have like double A, triple A, and then the majors or whatever? I don't really know how it's worked. Polyamory is like the major leagues of emotional intelligence. Yeah, and you look at the major leagues, and I think you go, "Wow, I would like to make all that money. I would love to have all that adulation." But guess what? It's tougher. Not me, baby. I'm happy staying in double A. I'm happy I'm happy with like my, you know, 370 batting average in double A. I'm gonna stay there. I don't wanna move up. I don't wanna see how I deal with, Shohei Ohtani. You know what I mean? I don't wanna see how I deal with, Mike Trout. I don't want to. I'm happy down here. Oh, this is juicy. We got a juicy comment. I was third to a married couple and they ended up divorced. Now he's married to a 10 years younger version of his ex-wife, and she is brokenhearted. And I'm not saying that's the norm, folks. I'm not saying that's the rule, but I'm saying it can happen. I'm saying it can happen. That must have been confusing for you when they get divorced. Well, it's like being a kid in a divorce where it's like, okay, who do I go to? I gotta pick a side. Did they have visitation rights for you? All right. All right. All right. So you get Janet on the weekend. Whoever made you orgasm most, they see you during the weekday, and then the other one sees you every other weekend. But every other weekend, they're real nice to you. Oh, that's funny. Not to make fun of your situation, right? But it is interesting. It is interesting. And again, I'm not opposed to people who have situations like that. In fact, I think monogamy is pretty wild too. I think it's all pretty wild. But you just got to pick your wild. That's all you're doing. I think once you see monogamy as a strange, like, if you're into which I would say I'm probably geared more towards it than other things. You know, I've tried. I've tried being a bachelor. Anxious. Boy, does it make me anxious. It makes me anxious, dude. Oh, I don't love it. It's cool. It's cool when you think about it in practice, but then in theory, but then in practice, it's like you got you got 3 people waiting for texts. Ah, come on. You don't care about hurting any of their feelings, really? Really? Well, that's you. That's you. And God bless you. And I hope those women are happy or those guys are happy, but I couldn't make them happy. Um, but yeah, I do really think that, I think that however your relationships work, it's great. I just think, you know, make sure make sure what you're doing is actually what you wanna do. I know polyamorous people who are complaining about it all the time, and I'm like, "Brother, come over to monogamy." I know monogamous people who certainly should not be with the partners they're with. We all know them. Boy, oh boy, do we all know them. Oh, this is a nice comment. I see you and John Mulaney in a nice situationship. While I'm not attracted to men, I would go ahead and say I think in theory that would be nice too. Could you imagine if there were paparazzi? And by the way, the paparazzi is not there for me. Okay, I'm not crazy. The paparazzi is there for John. But like me and John at a coffee shop, wouldn't that be cute? We're ordering coffee, but like his hand is kind of like resting on my upper back, as though he's being like, "What do you want, Dan?" Johnny, if you're out there, if you're listening to the podcast, no strings attached, but I got a great photo op for you. I got something that'll really send ripples through your fan base. That's funny. But yeah, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? Sort of romantic tryst with John Mulaney. I mean, I would be annoying because I would just be trying to get comedy advice from him. You know what I mean? I'd be like, we'd be out, and he'd be like, "So, are you having a good time?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, but how do I sell tickets in Kansas City?" It's a little Johnny. I got Johnny Baby. Uh, Baby J. I call him his special name, Baby J. Listen, I'm having a great time and all, but how would you say? And you look so nice today, and I love what you did with your hair. Listen, how do you sell tickets in Kansas City? I'm trying to get people out, but it seems a little bit sleepy. And he's like, well, did you make ads on Facebook? I'm like, of course I made ads on Facebook, Baby J. Oh man, me and Baby J, what a lovely life we would have. Um, but yeah, I don't know how we got into the relationship conversation, but I think it is very nice. Oh, this is a nice little comment. Yo, Dan. Oh, Jamie the Butcher here. Hope all is well on your end. Should have a few questions on the Patreon coming soon. Thank you so much, Jamie. You guys, by the way, you all can join the Patreon for $5 a month. That doesn't mean that you have to recur it. You can join for $5. Listen to all of the backlogged episodes, the premium episodes, which do not get released in public. These are episodes that are only available on the Patreon. And if you join, just pay the $5. If you want it to be recurring, that's great for me and Terrence, right? Pay $5 a month, you get an extra episode of Dancers every week. Or you can just join for $5, check out what I got there, boom, cancel the $5. I don't judge you for that in any way. You want to know why? I get a nice little $5. You know what I do with that $5? I spend it on Terrence. I get him a nice little jacket, get him a little pork pie hat, right? Buy him some rollerblades. Whatever Terrence wants. Whatever Terrence says he wants. That's what I get. Oh, Jace. Yeah, that's great, man. Jace just joined. He's in the chat and he said he just joined. That's great. Oh, you know what? I'll actually address this. Why not? Gotta get that SNL spot though, for real, for real. Ezra, let me tell you something. If they came knocking at my door, if SNL came knocking at my door, boy, would that be exciting for me because I actually really love SNL and I love the people who are on SNL. Um, and I love the sketches that they've been doing. It would be wonderful. Do I think that knock is coming anytime soon? Well, let me just say my focus right now is selling tickets in Kansas City. And if that knock ever does come, if SNL ever comes to my door and says, "Hey Dan, we need a mullet guy." We looked at the cast and we're really trying to push different voices, push voices that aren't heard that much in the mainstream, you know get people on who maybe have an incredibly interesting perspective, who can play a multitude of characters that would be offensive if we didn't have someone of that group to play those characters. And we need a white guy with a mustache and a mullet. I would go, I'm your man. Get me to New York. I got a couple of spots to do in Kansas City and Springfield, Missouri. But you know what? After that, let's sit down and have a little conversation. And by the way, listen, a lot of people on SNL, they complain about not getting enough screen time. They complain about not being in sketches. I want to let you know, I am happy to just be on SNL for the end part where everybody is waving. If I can just be in the background there, that's all I need. I don't need a sketch. I could take it or leave it. Being in the sketches themselves, I'd like to meet Fergie. Okay, don't get it twisted, folks. I'd like to meet Fergie as much as the next guy. I would love to go up to Fergie and say, "Hello, Fergie," and she goes, "Who are you?" I think she has an accent, but I'm not gonna try to do it. I'm trying to get on SNL. I'm not try Listen, if you put me on SNL, I promise I will never do a Fergie impression ever, unless you ask me to in the sketch, in which case I am your man. I will learn every word to Hips Don't Lie. I will do my best approximation of the accent. Do you hear me? But no, I think about that sometimes. Like, and I do have aspirations. Uh, I would say stand up is my favorite thing. Right now, it's the thing I love doing. It's the thing I want to pursue. It's the thing I would love to be able to. I'd love to just. I like meeting people. I like going to places where there are people, and I like doing a show, and then I really like meeting them. Part of the Cincinnati, the show was so fun, but also it was great because people came up to man it, and I'm not gonna get emotional in front of all you people, right? I'm not gonna get emotional in front of you people. But people coming up to me being like, I've been watching your videos for a long time, and it's great seeing you live. Oh, that means the world to me. And as the podcast grows, I hope eventually people come to see shows from the podcast. If you do, please let me know. If you come to a live show from listening to the podcast, for the love of God, let me know. Because, listen, this is a small operation here. This is for just this is for the real powerful Danomaniacs of the world. But hopefully someday this will be a nice way for people to discover this. But right now it's a diamond in the rough. Right now there's about 500, 600 people who are you're really at the bottom floor of something that, maybe won't be big, but who knows. Um is there an accent you can do? Or we can kind of we can approximate. Let me wait, give me a second here, guys. Wait. You know, over the over, over the rolling hills of Dublin, I can find me an accent. I can find a bit of an Irish accent. It's a bit difficult to kind of kickstart it. It's like an old car, an old vehicle. You got to kind of rev it up. But then once the accent starts going, then, oh, look at that. You got an Irish accent. It's very difficult to approximate, right? It took me 14 years in Killarney to learn how to do this accent, but I can do it now. And it's pretty easy for me. It kind of just comes off the tongue, right? Just like a beautiful bottle of Shersheki whiskey. Beautiful Shersheki whiskey, which I'm selling, by the way, because every Irish person has a whiskey brand that they're selling. Do you understand? And yeah, listen, we bled into Scottish there a little bit, but give me a few more years of practice, all right? I'll be SNL ready. It's so funny. They have so many talented people on SNL, like Chloe Fineman. I don't know if you've ever seen Chloe Fineman. She's like just this unbelievable generational talent at impersonations. She's not just good at impersonations. She can like get someone's essence in this insane way, right? Like when she does an impersonation of someone, she's like embodying them completely. It's really amazing. If you haven't seen Chloe Fineman do impressions, it really is like awe-inspiring. It would be so funny for me to be there too. You just have Chloe doing like a perfect impersonation, and then me there just doing an Irish accent, but I'm supposed to be like Bill Maher or something. Look at here. Looky here. New rule. Damn, Irish Bill Maher would be a great character. New rule. No one's allowed to kiss the Blarney Stone. I think I spent a lot of time thinking, boy, this would be a fun way to get canceled. And I think doing an offensive Irish accent and talking about the Blarney Stone, while I am, by the way, 85% Irish, all right? 85%. That's strong. That's like the proof of my whiskey. So I can do the Irish accent. I just want everybody to know, in case you were offended, no one is. But anyway, that's the podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. Again, check out the Patreon. Again, check out the tickets. We're really trying to move some of those tickets. Minneapolis is a big one. Kansas City and all of Missouri, big ones. So please check out the tickets. If you can't make it to any of those shows, keep enjoying the podcast. I'm going to keep putting this out. This is some of the most fun I have is doing this podcast. So thank you all for listening. Thank you all for being part of the live. And as always, have a good one.